Food is such a primary element, like everyone has to eat. And so farmers are really facing questions about how they produce food. How is it that this food comes to be on my plate, and is it safe?
I really have seen the loss of our social license. Our privilege to operate on the farm feels like it's slowly eroding. The people that I come in contact with still have a very romantic notion, a very nostalgic notion about what a farmer looks like. You know, the old man with the pitchfork.
A lot of people want their lives to change, but they don't want farmers' lives to change. So a lot of people would be really insulted if you told them they had to put away their iPhone and they had to go back to a phone that you actually turned the crank on in order to get 3 rings. So their idea is, though, that farmers will continue to use the technology that was around when the phone was a crank phone. And so the rest of society gets to move forward, and farmers are then held back and regulated in some sort of a romantic sense about what it is we think they should be doing. And that eventually becomes a problem for all of society.
Historically speaking, our farm has gone from a small size family farm operation to a large size family farm operation. We seed 13,000 acres this spring, and that's considered to be a pretty big farm. And in truth, we're very proud that we have grown to that capacity. We feel really good about being able to seed that many acres as a family farm. It's my husband and I, it's his brother and his wife, and his parents are still farming with us. By everybody's definition, we are a family farm. We also, for business purposes, have incorporated that farm. So it's confusing when we hear about corporate farms versus family farms. And the truth is that 97% of the farms in Canada are still family owned and operated.
Well, one of the things that people don't understand probably is that farms are really technically advanced. That over the years, farmers are one of the earliest adopters of any kind of technology. So that's the technology that you assume right off the bat, which is new types of computers, new types of GPS, new types of electronic technology. But farmers also have adapted a lot of technology in terms of new types of seeds and new types of farming practices. So farmers at the very heart are innovators.
One of the toughest questions that we get as farmers is around the use of pesticides. Are you dousing your fields with toxic chemicals? So farmers refer to pesticides as crop protection products because that's what they do. They protect the crop. A healthy plant produces healthy food. So it's my job as a farmer to produce the healthiest, most viable plants that we can grow. For me, it was never about organic versus conventional because I grew up in a farming environment. I had, I guess, a better understanding of the products that we're using, why they're safe, why it's okay. It never occurred to me, I never really had that preconceived notion that a pesticide is a very bad thing. But I have noticed that I've never met anybody that gets a really warm, fuzzy feeling when they hear the word pesticide. So I appreciate that it requires some explanation sometimes.
So the first thing to consider is that everything has been tested, and everything that farmers use is deemed to be safe the way the farmers use them. And even with, if they use them to 10 times the amount they use them, they still would be considered safe on the food that you're eating. And the other thing to think about is that farmers are the people who are actually using these things. So they're the ones who are the most concerned about spraying something too close to their house, or too close to their school, or that they're actually the ones who are pouring it into tanks. So if they had any concern whatsoever that some of these products were unsafe to use or unsafe for the environment, they would be the first ones affected and the first ones to make sure that they weren't used.
I use the example as a mother. I wouldn't give my kids medicine if they weren't sick. And the same goes for a farmer. We wouldn't use a chemical product on our crop if it didn't need it. We use those products to address a very specific concern. It may be a disease concern, it may be an insect concern, But rest assured, the products that we're using are specific and necessary for the viability and health of that plant.
When farmers go to visit their friends and relatives in the city, it could be a cousin, or you could be just sitting down beside somebody at a wedding or something, and people right away say, "Well, you don't use any of those genetically modified stuff, do you?" And it's very awkward. I've been at funerals where people have come up to me and wanted to know if I was using all the kinds of stuff that they felt was hazardous to mankind. And for farmers, like we adopt these new methods of farming, and we do it on the basis that that we know it's been tested and that it's safe. But then we have to try to explain that to people who don't have any idea what it is we actually do anymore.
So there's a general misconception that farmers are handcuffed and that we're forced to grow seeds that are given to us by these big bad seed companies. And it's just simply not true. Farmers have a variety of seed choices, 20 to 30 different companies for the commodities that we want to grow. We are able to make that decision. If science can continue to be a part of seed development, farmers are going to have more opportunity to grow the food that we need with potentially the use of less pesticides, with better disease prevention, some drought tolerance. The seed varieties that have science behind them allow us to better manage our risk in the field. For example, on our farm, the land that we're farming today has been in our family for more than 100 years. It is in our best interest to be sustainable, to leave that land in better condition for the next generation than was left to us.
There are a lot more people on the earth now than what there was even 50, 60 years ago. Because we can grow a lot more food on fewer acres, we're able to actually protect the environment. If you had to grow food the way it was grown 50 years ago, there wouldn't be any trees left in the Amazon.
The population around the globe is increasing. And as a farmer, I get to be part of the answer to global hunger. And I believe as a farmer that science is going to help us solve that problem. I want science and agriculture to be part of the solution.
We adopt these new methods of farming, and we do it on the basis that that we know it's been tested and that it's safe. We do it because we feel that we have a duty to feed humanity. It sounds corny when you say it, but farmers really do take that on.
Farmers are more legislated, there's more regulation that is coming down, there's a lot of misinformation, and that worries me.
So one of the things which is really interesting is the impact of a new technology called Facebook.
Canadians really do want to hear more about the food that's being grown in this country. They're excited about what it is that they're eating. They're starting to learn more. They're getting a lot of their information from social media, from Facebook, from Google.
You have a lot of different competing interests in terms of trying to tell the story of farmers for their own reasons. Now, these things aren't based on science, and people just know it's true, whether it's true or not.
I grew up on a farm, so it never occurred to me before that people wouldn't understand how food was grown on a farm. And now that I'm starting to understand that the majority of Canadians are 2 generations removed from the farm. Okay, now I understand why it is that they don't know what's happening on the farm. Now I feel like I can be more empathetic.
I love farming, and I love the way that we farm. Because when we're trying to grow food, we want to take care of the land that we grow it on. Because this is the land that we've had for generations. And I'm not going to grow food I wouldn't feed to my kids, and I'm not going to do something to the land that's going to affect my neighbors. You can rest assured that I am doing this in a way that is safe for you as well.
That was a moment for me. The first time somebody told me, "You're the first farmer I've ever met." And I realized that it is going to be my opportunity. It is part of my job. It's part of my responsibility to get involved in the education so that I can continue the privilege of operating as a farmer in Saskatchewan.
The family farm, a tradition in Canada going back 200 years. This canola farm has been in the family for 3 generations. Today's farmers face the same challenges as their forefathers: weather, soil fertility, pests, commodity prices. But today's farm is radically different from the romantic ideal.